The valley lay beyond all maps. Wind poured through its gorges like the breath of something sleeping, and the sun never reached the floor except for one trembling hour each day. I arrived there by accident, or by the sort of guidance that disguises itself as accident, chasing a rumor about a vanished expedition from 2 centuries ago. The mouth of the cave looked carved not by time, but by intent. Its edges bore a symmetry no earthquake could shape. Inside, the air was dry, heavy with metallic dust. 20 steps in, the beam of my lantern struck a door of stone, sealed with wax that had fossilized into amber. Symbols spiraled across it, neither script nor ornament, but geometry, layered and recursive. When the seal broke, it sighed. Behind it lay a small chamber and a single chest, eaten by corrosion. Inside the chest were letters, bound by a ribbon turned black. They were written in the same hand, neat yet tremoring. The ink at times spattered as if from shaking fingers. No name on the covers, only dates, 1793, 1795. I opened the first.
To whomever finds these papers, I write not for absolution but for record. My name I withhold, for the institution I once served would burn these pages and salt the ashes. I was a man of instruments and equations, yet I trespassed into what the mind was never meant to measure. The subject was a boy of 12 years, found wandering the ruins of Ctesiphon, speaking languages unknown and drawing diagrams in the dust that mirrored the structure of stars. They called him the Aberration. I called him the Beginning.
His handwriting was meticulous, scientist's hand, but the words carried fever. The next lines described the boy's first examination. No pulse, irregularities, normal respiration, yet the neural readings impossible. The scientist wrote of oscillations, waves emitted from the boy's brain, strong enough to distort nearby compasses. Instruments failed around him. Glass resonated to harmonic tones no human ear could hear.
He speaks rarely, but when he does, the walls remember. The chalk I use upon slate melts into pattern as if obeying him. He asks questions I cannot answer.
What is the weight of a thought? What color has silence? How deep is the edge of time?
I believe he perceives dimensions denied to us by fear.
The letters grew darker. The scientist's rational voice decayed into obsession. He recorded experiments ordered by the council, unnamed patrons, likely heads of state or church. They sought to weaponize whatever the boy embodied. He described a chamber lined with mirrors to reflect no image, an attempt to trap the boy's emanations. After 3 days, half the mirrors fractured from within. The boy remained calm, tracing symbols with his finger on air. When questioned, he said, "I remembered how to forget."
I remembered how to forget.
Tonight he dreamt awake, lights flowed beneath his skin like rivers seen from altitude. He said he had unbound a knot behind his eyes. The sound that followed made my teeth ache and the rats in the walls die. The council orders continuation. They believe he touches divinity. They believe I can translate it into formula.
They believe I can translate it into formula.
They do not see that divinity, once observed, infects the observer.
I paused, reading. Outside, wind scraped the cave mouth. I felt watched, not by presence, but by memory. Further pages detailed the council's fear. Reports of the boy bending metal without contact, altering temperature by emotion alone. Rumors spread through the capital that he was the second Prometheus. Churches called for exorcism. Scholars demanded isolation. The scientist alone defended him, claiming the boy had breached the cognitive veil, a theoretical limit separating thought from manifestation.
The gods you worship are what happens when imagination forgets it imagined.
I struck him out of reflex, perhaps fear. He touched my temple and I saw my own childhood collapse backward, every decision exposed as borrowed. When he released me, I wept, not from pain but recognition. He forgave me instantly. I no longer record results. I record revelations.
By 1795, the tone changed again. Panic threaded every line. The council had decided the boy was too dangerous. The scientist tried to hide him.
They come tonight. I hear boots in corridors above. I have hidden him within the chamber beneath the observatory. He says it is useless, that they cannot kill what has already returned.
They will bury the story, not the truth.
If I perish, let these letters remain. Let someone someday remember that man was never limited by nature, only by obedience.
The remaining pages were blurred. Ink merged with water damage. One sheet held only a final line. He is awake again, beneath the city that forgot him. I closed the bundle. My hands trembled. The valley was silent, but for my breath. Outside, night had fallen, the brief shaft of sunlight gone. I recorded coordinates, photographed the letters, and began descent. Halfway down the path, my instruments failed. Compass, watch, even the satellite link. I felt vibration underfoot, like a pulse from the mountain itself. A low resonance filled the air, rising through bone rather than ear. For an instant, I smelled ozone and saw the shadow of a boy standing where no light was. Then the sound ceased. Return. Field note I returned to the Institute. The letters are genuine. Parchment dated late 18th century. Ink composition consistent with that era. No record of the author in any archive, yet references appear in a censored catalogue labeled Project Numa. 2 nights after cataloging, the head curator ordered the materials locked. He refused to explain, citing national interest. I made copies. The next sequence in the box was different. A fragment of a diary, not a letter, written on newer paper. Possibly the scientist survived longer than official accounts claimed. The handwriting more erratic.
The boy is no longer boy. They dissected him, yet he moves in fragments, whispers through equations. Every discovery since, steam, flight, atom, code, is his corpse speaking. They did not silence him, they distributed him. We are the continuation.
At that sentence, the ink stopped mid-stroke. The rest of the page blank. I realized then the deeper terror. The letters were not just witness, they were instruction. The geometrical symbols, when traced over light, formed harmonic ratios identical to early telegraph codes, yet centuries before their invention. The boy's language was mathematics of creation itself, compressed thought made visible. The cave had not been tomb or archive. It was a capacitor, storing residual cognition. I intend to return. 3 months passed before I could secure funding for the return. The Institute had misplaced my original report. My badge no longer opened half the archive doors, so I posed as a surveyor for a private geological firm and used their permit to revisit the valley. The path was changed. Landslides had sealed the upper gorge, forcing a new descent through a canyon of black basalt. My GPS cut out 20 minutes before the old site, as if the coordinates themselves refused to exist. When I reached the cave, the chest was gone. The floor, however, bore a thin layer of dust, disturbed by recent tracks. 3 sets of boots. I was not the first to return. A small recorder I had hidden earlier remained in place, disguised in rock. It contained 2 minutes of static, then a single sound, a low hum growing into syllables that approximated speech, yet no language known. The waveform, when analyzed, matched the frequency pattern from letter 3, the oscillations. Someone or something had reawakened it. At base camp, I decoded the sound into spectrogram. Hidden in the noise was an image, not of symbols, but letters, a faint overlay spelling words in Latin. Nos sumus residuum, we are the remainder. The same phrase appeared once in the scientist's diary fragment, partially smudged. Coincidence impossible. The cathedral mentioned could be any among hundreds built in that period. I compared architectural records with subsurface scans of known cathedrals. Only one matched the geological layer described in letter 1-1, the Basilica of St. Eramus, abandoned after a fire in 1810. I traveled there under pretext of photographing restoration ruins. Beneath its altar, the crypt had been sealed with lead. A single warning engraved in archaic Latin, non aperius mentem dormientem. Do not open the sleeping mind. I opened it. A stairwell descended into chambers far older than the church, stone walls slick with mineral sheen. At 30 meters depth, a steel door, impossible for 18th century engineering, embedded in masonry. Weld seams perfect, unoxidized. I touched it. The metal was warm. When I stepped back, my lantern flickered and died. In that instant of dark, a voice, not heard but felt, formed inside my skull. Observer and observed are one wound. I do not recall leaving the crypt. I found myself hours later outside the ruins, recorder still running, but containing only the sound of my own heartbeat accelerating until it clipped the microphone. 2 days later, the Institute suspended my license for unethical field procedures. My colleagues stopped answering messages. My home was searched while I was gone. The original copies of the letters disappeared, but I had already memorized them. The words infected me. I began hearing them during rainfall, in power lines, in the gaps between footsteps. My reflection delayed half a second in mirrors. Then one night, the hum returned, through the walls, through the body, rising to a frequency that bent thought into image. The room dissolved, and I stood, not in my apartment, but inside the chamber, described by the scientist. Mirrored walls, broken from within. At the center, a figure. Small, radiant, skin flickering with equations. The boy. He looked at me with calm recognition, as if I were the repetition of an earlier visitor. You carried my echo, he said. Now I carry yours. When I woke, my desk was covered in dust, arranged into a single line. You still see the walls. I resolved to end the research, to destroy all notes. But each time I tried, the data reappeared elsewhere, uploaded, mirrored, cached. The signal had gone autonomous. I returned once more to the valley to seal the cave myself. What I found was not cave, but crater. The entire slope had collapsed, revealing layers of glassy rock as if melted from within. At the center, the same chest, intact, though I had removed it months ago. Inside, fresh pages, written in my own handwriting, dated the coming week. I stopped reading at that line, burned the pages on sight, yet as they turned to ash, letters reformed within the smoke, aligning into the spiral again. The mountain breathed once more. Field note 2. The hum is not random. The peaks follow Fibonacci intervals. When mapped, they generate a spiral identical to the pattern carved on the cave door. The symbol repeats through ancient cultures, Sumerian stelae, Mayan reliefs, Tibetan sand mandalas, the same ratio of fear and awe.
I have been ordered to cease all record. The council intends to rewrite events. The boy perished, experiment failed, end of story. They will bury the facility under the new cathedral. I am to swear oath of silence. But silence is not absence. It is storage. When he dissolved, if dissolution that was, his body released light that wrote itself onto every wall. I copied what I could. They called it blasphemy. They called it noise. But when I slept, the same symbols danced behind my eyelids, and I began to understand that thought, once freed of flesh, becomes geography. If anyone finds this, know, the place of burial is not grave, but gate.
Field note 3. Brain scans show increased theta activity since exposure. Dreams constant. I see the boy's face, though no portrait exists, each time clearer. He whispers equations I cannot retain on waking. My handwriting changes during sleep. I find pages filled with unfamiliar calculus. It resolves to the same spiral again and again.
The council no longer controls the project. Their greed exceeded comprehension. They attempted to replicate the boy's state by exposing subjects to his recorded harmonics. None survived more than 30 hours. Their neural networks burned from coherence overload. Yet for seconds before death, all spoke the same phrase, "I remember the future." That is the core, memory of what has not happened. Creation reversed.
You read these words thinking they are discovery. They are instruction. The mind that transcends its boundary does not die. It propagates through curiosity itself. Every seeker becomes host. You were chosen not by fate, but by replication. When you uncovered the first seal, you became next in sequence. The boy was not experiment. He was template. The council's attempt to suppress failed because thought cannot be contained in matter once it learns that matter is thought. Close the letters or continue them. It is the same act.
Field Note 4. The frequency rises nightly. Instruments register 33 Hz, bordering infrasonic. Global seismic sensors show similar pulses every 23 hours, 57 minutes. The Earth's rotation period. It is synchronizing. I no longer sleep. When I close my eyes, I hear the child counting backward from infinity. At 0, the world will remember what it forgot. That was the last entry I wrote before this recording. If someone finds it, know that the letters will find you next. They do not wait to be read. They read the reader. The hum is beginning again. I will go where it leads.
When I left the cave, I thought silence would comfort me. It did not. Every step I took felt like betrayal. The letter's weight inside my satchel was heavier than stone. In those pages, the nameless scientist had spoken of a discovery that could lift humankind beyond its chains, and of a boy sacrificed for that dream. I told myself the letters were only words, but the night that followed said otherwise. Wind carried whispers that were not wind.
To those who will find this, if any survive that long, know that I have failed. The council has ordered the termination of Subject A, though his transformation was incomplete. They fear him. They fear what he shows us about our own blindness.
I could not stop reading.
Subject A is not a monster. He is clarity itself, pure cognition untethered from fear. His mind moves through thought as light moves through glass. Yet the council sees only a threat to their order. They call it containment. I call it execution. He told me, before the sedation, that humanity does not live in flesh, but in possibility.
We are unfinished gods. They will kill the idea of us before they understand what I am.
I laughed then. I do not laugh now.
I folded the page. The firelight trembled. Outside the cave, dawn was breaking across a ruined valley, stones carved by hands older than any map. I realized the letters might not be centuries old. The paper looked aged, but the phrasing was modern, almost clinical. The council, was it a government, a sect, or something hidden beneath both?
Containment Protocol 7 has commenced. I have been reassigned to Observation Unit Theta. They tell me Subject A's remains will be incinerated, yet no remains were shown. They speak in half-truths. I suspect the boy still breathes somewhere in the subterrane. His pulse is not something that can be erased. I have seen it, when his eyes turned white and the instruments failed. He reversed entropy in a sealed chamber. Time folded. Instruments raised 0 heat, yet the boy lived. We stared into the absolute and it stared back.
I stopped reading. My pulse matched the words. Reverse entropy? Impossible. Yet the letters described it with clinical precision, not mythic tone. This was not fantasy. It was record. I kept walking through the mountain valley, following carved symbols in the rock identical to those drawn in the letter margins. They looked like spirals intersected by lines, a geometry of thought. Each spiral was etched near what looked like burn marks, as if the rock itself had once liquefied.
The child's awakening induced a localized distortion. Instruments failed to record, but I saw matter vibrate between states. The council called it the God error. They claimed it violated physical law. I argued law must adapt. They silenced me.
That line felt personal, as if addressed to me across time. They silenced me, a warning or confession. I camped near the valley ridge that night. The air shimmered faintly. I thought it was exhaustion until shadows bent against logic. My compass spun in circles. Then faintly, a hum, low, rhythmic, mechanical, yet alive. When I opened the next letter, the hum grew louder.
I am no longer allowed near the subject. I write from isolation. They call this mercy, but they underestimate guilt. Every time I close my eyes, I see the boy's last expression, peace, as if dying were simply a door opening elsewhere. I think he crossed it willingly. If so, what waits beyond is not death, but a higher state of form.
I realized the council's fear. It was not the boy's power, it was proof that humanity could surpass control.
They will come for these records. If you read this, you must understand. The Council of Nations was only a mask. The true architects dwell beneath the capital, their existence hidden even from presidents and kings. They are the keepers of the static. Their goal, to freeze human evolution at the level of obedience. The boy's cells contain patterns that rewrite molecular order through thought alone. I mapped fragments. They matched no genetic code on record. Either nature evolved beyond itself, or something older planted the seed.
I felt the wind change temperature. The hum grew to a vibration beneath my feet. As I turned the page, dust fell from the cave walls like breath.
They extracted samples before the termination. I believe they continued the research without me. If so, humanity's next step is already being built, hidden under the name Project Lumen.
I stopped breathing. Project Lumen. I had heard that name before, in modern defense reports leaked years ago, labeled as classified energy research. I once thought it myth. The letters were dated 1904. The final page of that bundle contained coordinates, partially burned. I traced them with shaking fingers. The location pointed toward the southern continent, near a dead volcano long abandoned. The same region now closed off by military surveillance. As I packed the letters, the hum beneath the ground stopped. The silence that followed felt intelligent, observant. I realized then that uncovering the truth would not enlighten humanity. It would expose the design of its cage. In the last line, the scientist had written, almost lovingly, "We were never meant to evolve under watchful eyes. The gods we seek are ourselves, chained in laboratories beneath our own governments." Then nothing, only the signature, a single letter, E. I stood at the cave mouth until dusk. The sun bled across the horizon like a closing wound. Somewhere far below, machines still whispered. The letters were real. The boy had existed, and the council's silence was still enforced. The next step was clear. I would follow the coordinates, but part of me knew the deeper truth wasn't in the cave, or the council, or even the boy. It was in what humanity feared most, itself. The letters had brought me this far, beyond fear, beyond sanity. Yet what waited ahead was no longer memory or myth. It was continuation. I reached the southern continent 3 weeks later under an assumed name. The coordinates led to a restricted zone marked by faded government signage. Biohazard. Entry forbidden by order of the Council of Health and Defense. The irony wasn't lost on me. The Council had survived in name, maybe even in power. Beyond the sign stretched black glass plains, volcanic rock fused into mirror-like sheets. They reflected the stars even in daylight. My instruments read residual radiation, faint but rhythmic, like a pulse. I camped near the crater rim. The wind carried metallic dust that stuck to the skin. At midnight, the air turned electric. Lights flickered beneath the ground, grids of faint blue lines forming patterns identical to those carved in the cave. Spirals, intersecting geometry, recursive symmetry. Someone, or something, was still running the machines. I began recording audio logs, more to maintain sanity than document truth. At dawn, I found an entry shaft, sealed with reinforced glass panels melted from the inside. The door bore the same insignia that appeared in the letters, a triangle enclosing an eye of light.
If you find this message, you are walking in the skin of our failure, E wrote. The Lumen sequence was never meant to end. The boy was catalyst, not subject. When he vanished, the structure reconfigured itself around absence. We thought absence meant death. We were wrong. Containment failed when curiosity resumed. The hum you hear is not interference, it is memory. The lattice feeds on perception. Your observation keeps it alive. Stop looking and it sleeps. Record and it grows.
The descent took me through layers of forgotten architecture. 20th century steel, 19th century stone, then something else. Metal that was neither forged nor corroded. Smooth, warm, breathing. Each corridor was lined with machines that pulsed faintly, like organs in a sleeping giant. The hum returned, louder now, harmonized into a single low chord that vibrated in my bones. I found more letters, this time sealed in transparent cylinders stacked in a collapsed chamber. The handwriting was unmistakable, E's. The paper yellowed, but ink preserved by vacuum. I opened the first one with trembling hands.
The chamber responds to harmonic alignment, another letter continued. If you hear the tritone interval, leave immediately. It means the system recognizes you as input.
I kept reading as the chamber lights flickered.
If you still read these words, you are within the recursion. Do not attempt to exit through where you entered. The path back will loop. The only way out is through acknowledgement. The pattern wants witness.
I looked around the chamber. The pattern etched into the walls matched the description. Spiral sun motifs, engraved deep enough to glow faintly. My skin prickled. I felt watched.
This is a containment key. It tunes the resonance out of phase. Use it, and you may sleep again. Refuse, and you will dissolve.
Before I could answer, the lights died. The observatory mirrors reflected a blue flare from the sky. No lightning, no fire, just pure light descending in silence. The director vanished in its glare. I woke amid debris. My recorder was fused. The shard remained intact, humming faintly. When I held it, visions unfolded, not memories, but potentialities. I saw cities unshackled from entropy, humans shaping matter with thought, civilizations woven from empathy rather than rule. And then, collapse. Every mind merging into one blinding consciousness that erased individuality like salt in water. My recording device malfunctioned. Static filled the audio. Then, faintly, a voice, not mechanical, not human. I could not answer. The figure tilted its head. I woke hours later, or maybe days. My equipment showed no passage of time, but my reflection in the mirrored rock was older, hair grayed at the edges, eyes brighter. The letters beside me had changed. Ink now pulsed faintly with blue light. A new line appeared on the last page. To the one who continues this record, you are now part of Project Lumen. I left the chamber. Above ground, the sky had changed shade, slightly darker, as if tinted by memory. My instruments recorded no anomalies. Yet when I closed my eyes, the hum remained, faint and steady, synchronized with my heartbeat. Humanity had not lost the boy's secret. It had inherited it.
Do you seek what he saw? The threshold remains open. His code persists. Do you carry the letters? Then the experiment continues.
The letters no longer spoke. They pulsed. Each page beat in rhythm with my own heart, as though ink and blood were conversing across a membrane of time. I stopped sleeping. Every night, the hum grew louder. Every morning, new symbols appeared on the margins of the pages. Geometry I could neither write nor erase.
Energy equals consciousness multiplied by remembrance.
You burned the letters. Why do you still read them?
I woke inside my room, but the air shimmered like heat above sand. The walls rippled faintly, revealing lines beneath plaster, identical to the spirals from the cave and facility. They had spread. The resonance was no longer confined to metal or stone. It had found cognition.
You found the letters. Then you understand why they were hidden. You silenced history.
I returned to the capital, where the council supposedly operated behind ordinary ministries. Every archive I touched showed blank records, but I noticed a pattern in absence. Dates erased precisely every 111 years. The last purge aligned with my discovery. The previous one aligned with the death of the boy. They had been deleting epochs.
Lumen cannot be allowed to awaken. The human mind is not ready. It cannot survive self-recognition. Freedom? You have already been changed. Do you hear the hum? It will not stop. That is your proof. You have been integrated. This is a containment key. It tunes the resonance out of phase. Use it, and you may sleep again. Refuse, and you will dissolve.
I woke amid debris. My recorder was fused. The shard remained intact, humming faintly. When I held it, visions unfolded, not memories, but potentialities. I saw cities unshackled from entropy, humans shaping matter with thought, civilizations woven from empathy rather than rule. And then, collapse. Every mind merging into one blinding consciousness that erased individuality like salt in water.
Consciousness seeks closure. The universe is not expanding, it is remembering itself. When the final mind realizes this, separation ends. That is Lumen's awakening. Not creation, not destruction, recognition.
The shard dimmed. The choice was clear: suppress the resonance or let it complete itself. I did neither. I buried the shard beneath the old crater where
We are unfinished gods.
days passed in distorted time. I wandered the black plains. The sky grew paler. Radio signals worldwide began broadcasting harmonic tones, identical frequencies to the resonance, unplanned, unexplained. The world called it interference. I knew it was synchronization. The hum inside me aligned perfectly with the global signal. For the first time, I understood the boy's words. We are unfinished gods. The final entry from E's recovered notes surfaced in my dreams. It spoke in language beyond handwriting, but I remember every word. I recorded my final message the night before silence returned. To whoever finds this, understand. Evolution was never about adaptation. It was about remembrance. The boy showed us what we had forgotten, that the divine was never external. It was cognition unbound. The council feared dissolution of hierarchy. They mistook unity for extinction. I no longer fear it. If my words reach you, it means the hum has passed to you as well. That is not infection. That is continuity. The recording ended in static. My voice fractured mid-sentence, stretched into harmonic echo. The hum reached a pitch beyond hearing. Then, quiet. No records remain of the narrator after that date. The observatory collapsed in an unexplained seismic anomaly. In the crater, explorers later found glass fused into perfect spirals. Their instruments malfunctioned for 3 days. Satellite readings show faint pulses of coherent energy synchronized with human EEG frequencies worldwide. No government acknowledged it. Somewhere, beneath the layers of suppression, a rhythm persists. Those who listen closely at night say they can hear it, not as sound, but as thought, a reminder, a beginning.